Recruiting as a technical recruiter in Japan is very interesting and a subject matter that I don't see covered that much in YouTube these days, recruiting in general. So in today's video, I'm going to kind of go over what exactly a technical recruiter like myself does on a day-to-day basis. Thanks so much for coming to this channel. My name is Howard. I am a technical recruiter and entrepreneur based in San Francisco, California and Tokyo, Japan, where I talk about things related to career, recruiting, finance, and how to up your professional game. So if you like to hear that kind of stuff, don't forget to click and subscribe. It goes a long way in supporting the channel. So let's get right into the video. So technical recruiting in Japan is different from recruiting in a country like the US or other country where another language isn't spoken, right? Or where English is not the non-native language, right? The native language in Japan is Japanese. However, a lot of the US-based companies like Apple, Salesforce, Microsoft, they have offices in countries like Japan that have a significant operations and bring the company lots of revenue. And there's a huge consumer and customer base there. And so having the right people in place to support the operations of these companies is vital. For example, if Microsoft or Apple is looking for a senior product marketing manager, they're going to require all the things that a person would of the same position would be in the US, in addition to being bilingual. So it kind of brings another element to recruiting in general. Recruiting, if you don't know, is basically the process of introducing candidates to companies based on open positions or skill sets. Companies are constantly looking for positions to fill because that's the way they grow. And the way they find these positions is through either their own internal recruiting staff, job boards, employee referrals to find and for their company. In another part of recruiting is agency recruiting, and that's where companies like myself or other larger recruiting operations will work for companies to introduce and find candidates. And the way agency recruiters are paid is on a contingent basis, and that means that similar to how a real estate agent is paid on a commission basis, when the closure of the successful introduction is done, at that time the fees are paid to the company or the individual, and those terms are typically net 30 or net 60, so that after the person starts 30 days subsequent to their starting the position, the company or individual will get paid. And that's the recruiting business in general. Japan recruiting, I think, is much more challenging. For example, let me just put into perspective, if I'm recruiting for an AI technology company and they're looking for Python developers, typically the way a recruiter will find or source that is through sites like LinkedIn, GitHub, that's for developers, or other sites to where Python developers gather and to discuss code or recent events, etc. And you can typically find people there. However, in Japan or in other countries where English is not spoken or not the native language of choice, they're going to frequent Japanese sites and job boards and networking sites. And in Japan, they have those. In addition to face-to-face networking, which is very important in Japan and Asia. So you're not going to find the best candidates, or you're not going to find candidates plug and play through a site like LinkedIn. They're not there. Just to give you some stats, out of the 130 million Japanese population, only 3 million or less than that on LinkedIn. And in addition to, Japanese has the culture of not kind of job hopping a lot and not broadcasting themselves socially. So it's just part of their culture. So you're not going to see a lot of contacts or networks made through LinkedIn, whereas in the US, that's the main de facto way recruiters or companies will reach out to candidates. That's not in Japan. So recruiting then becomes 10 times harder. And because it's 10 times harder, there's a longer cycle to find the candidates for the companies, and also the fees will typically be higher. In Japan, the fees for full-time placement for employees to companies can range anywhere from 30 to 40% cash compensation. That's a lot of money. And so you can see the lure, the pull of recruiting in Japan. So day-to-day basis, what do I do running a recruitment desk? Well, I live in both. I live in San Francisco and I live in Tokyo. And when I'm in different cities or different locations, my activities are different. So if I'm in San Francisco or the US, 100% of my time is on networking events, meeting people, going out to networking events, to having one-on-one coffees, to pushing dinners, and to establish relationships that may not turn into business that year, but will build the seeds, so to speak, of establishing future relationships. And these are relationships that you continue to nurture throughout your lifetime in the business. Now, when I'm in Japan or Tokyo, that's opposite. All that time is spent on sourcing candidates for those companies and clients, because if you cannot deliver the client or the candidate to the client, there's no point in having the business in the first place, right? And I think that's the hardest part of the recruitment business in Japan is finding candidates. It's extremely not easy. And so that's how I run my desk on a day-to-day basis. And I do this constantly, 24/7. Now there are sites like 8card, which is a kind of online business card exchange, electronic card exchange. It's also kind of a social networking or business networking site, specifically for business. And a lot of the people working at US-based tech firms will put their most recent information on the website, as well as post stuff related to business, events, things happening, product introductions, PR, etc. on that site. It's worth it to check out if you're doing any type of recruiting in Japan. So how do you build the business for this type of business for recruiting in Japan? I just mentioned it. It has to be very tailored and specific. Obviously, when in the US, again, you're not going to find the candidates, or most likely, but you will find strong networks, may lead to candidates or not, but a lot of those are business development related. And then when you're in Japan, they should be candidate focused. So is it worth it to start a business, recruitment business, if you're considering about in Japan? A lot of companies, actually recruiting companies based in the US or APAC, will actually open up offices in Japan simply because it just behooves them, because the profitability or future profitability for this type of business is pretty good. It's, as I was mentioned, because it's a candidate driven market, because candidates are so hard to find, the fees are a lot higher. But then again, it takes a lot harder, it's a lot more effort to find candidates, so it's not easy. And by its nature, I think recruiting is a very competitive business where you may have 5 to 10 recruitment companies working 3 to 5 or 3 to 10 positions. So people or the companies who are able to find and source those candidates and deliver the clients will succeed in the end. I will talk about setting up how to set up a recruitment company in future video, but I hope you liked today's video. Thanks so much for spending your time with me. Again, don't forget to click the like button. It goes a long way in supporting the channel and me being able to provide free content to my viewers out there. Thanks a lot so much. Have a great day and have a great rest of the year. Take care.